Hi folks. Well, I'll apologize in advance if there's a sound issue because it is starting to pick up wind-wise. We're going to have a storm coming. But I'd like to talk to you today about blueberries and blueberry bushes. This is a great addition to add to your property, actually whether you live out in the country or just have a backyard. Blueberries aren't that difficult to plant or grow, and the harvest is definitely worth it. You can see here some of my berries this year. I did some picking on this plant earlier today. It's been a good year. It's been a lousy year weather-wise to do most gardening, but the blueberries, because of the extra rain, they've grown fairly large, and this soil is up above where it's really muddy, so it's a bit more well-drained, so that helps too. So I'll just show you what I have here. I have 5 blueberry plants that I've planted here a number of years ago. I started them small, maybe a foot tall or so. Got them at, I think I got some at Tractor Supply. I got some from Stark Brothers Seed Company. First of all, if you've never done blueberries before, there are a few things that I need to point out. First of all, if you want to have good pollination and a fair amount of crop, you have to plant multiple varieties together, at least 2 different varieties, so that they cross-pollinate well. I can't remember what they're called here. I have a few different ones I got at different times. I actually had a couple more plants out here in the yard when I first started, but I didn't have anything protecting them at the time. And with 2 male dogs, every time they'd be let out of the house in the morning, they'd run over here and have to mark their territory, and the first thing that they ran into were the blueberry plants. And of course, if one dog did it, that meant the other one had to follow up behind. So pretty soon I was seeing blueberry plants dying, and I'm thinking, what in the world's going on here? And so when one would die, I'd just pull it out, and then the next one in line, oh, what's going on with that one? Finally it dawned on me, the dogs were killing it with their urine. So and then the other thing that I had to do, even after I had stopped that, I'd left another tree growing here that was closer to the house, just a junk tree, hoping that the dogs could use that, and that worked a little bit. But the other thing that happened when they were smaller and they would start to get blueberries, we had chickens, and the chickens used to come over here, and I actually saw a few of them leaping up in the air to try to grab blueberries off the stalks. So that didn't work either. What I finally ended up doing is putting 2-foot chicken wire around the bottom, put stakes on the corners, of course, and then of course when the blueberries start to ripen, you have to put netting over them because the birds love blueberries. They'll have a field day. Now this is what I had to do because we had chickens. It also works with the dogs now too, because they can't get in at them. But if you don't have that, what I would suggest is when your bushes grow tall enough, is put a canopy over the top, a framework over the top with chicken wire, and then you can even come down the sides a bit with chicken wire to leave kind of a permanent protection on the top, and then just put a skirt around the outside with the mesh netting here that I'm using. It's that way. I've done this in another place where I lived, where I had much more mature plants, and that makes it a whole lot easier to get in and out of when you're picking, because here you have to lift the netting up and over the top, and then you have to put it all back. And I just have it attached here. I have some screws that I've run part way into the wood. I just hook it over there, and that does the trick. Another thing that I did, it was recommended that blueberries like soil that tends to be more acidic, and so to mulch it, they were suggesting use sawdust if you've got sawdust, whether you're in a place where there's a sawmill close by, whether you have a workshop that you've got a lot of dust coming off your table saws. That works great, rather than commercial mulch. It has to do with the acid content and so on. Well, I didn't have a whole lot of that, so I substituted. This is now 2 years ago, I guess I put this down. I just got pine shavings, pine flakes at Tractor Supply, a bale of pine flakes. Before I did that, I made sure I string trimmed down anything that was growing in there that I didn't want growing in there, of course. And then I covered the area around where I was going to enclose with landscape fabric, that black semi-porous stuff, to keep the weed growth down. And then I put several inches of pine shavings, and that has made a huge difference. This is about the 3rd year I'm getting a decent crop on this. from plants that are maybe 5-6 years old. It does take a while for them to grow up, so you don't get blueberries immediately, not many. But this year, and again, you can't really tell here because I've already picked probably a gallon of blueberries off these two plants already. As you can see, there's a whole lot more to go. That's rhubarb. My wife wanted a couple rhubarb plants, so I had room here. I just stuck them in here because they're perennial, and I didn't want to put them in my garden. I'd have to worry about off-season that I'd be accidentally cutting them or tilling them and so on. But here they're safe. They're out of the way. She's already got a bunch of rhubarb off here. That's an earlier spring crop. So I've got these two plants here. As you can see, some of these have a lot of white ones on. For me, where I'm living here in this part of the country, this is early. Usually I look to get blueberries around the 4th of July. It's the last week of June here. They started last week, so say the 3rd week of June this year, so they're about 2 weeks early. But you can see I still have a lot to go. We've just started picking from them. And again, these are different varieties. You can see there are different ones growing there. The sizes are different in them. This variety down on the end here, I know I got that one in Stark Brothers, but I can't remember. But they're smaller. They're a smaller berry. But they're much more prolific, and they last longer through the summer. I do have some weed growth starting in there. I should have in the spring tried to get it all pulled out and remulched, but I figure next year I'll put a new bed of pine shavings in here again. You don't necessarily have to do it every year, but the one thing that you do want to do if you want to have good blueberries is you have got to prune them every year. I do my pruning of my fruit trees in the dead of winter when there's no growth, when the sap isn't moving and stuff, so there's less damage to them or potential harm to them. Do the same thing with the blueberries. You prune them back pretty good, not completely, but just back. Now, like for example, this one here. Now I had pruned this back probably 2 to 3 feet per branch, and you can see just how much growth there was just since pruning in the wintertime. And this same thing here. Now look at how many blueberries are on this plant right here. Just incredible amount of bearing this year. If you don't prune, you don't get this. So you have to do it every year. It's just like if you have grapes, you have to prune the grapevines every year. But it's not hard to do. There are a lot of books about it you can see, or even videos on YouTube. I haven't bothered to show pruning blueberries because it's just, I'm 5 and I'm done. Maybe in the future I'll do one, but blueberries are absolutely great. If you don't like blueberries, why, that's not American. They're great for blueberry pie, blueberry jam. My wife makes great blueberry jam. They're also great to put on your cereal in the morning. They're great to put in smoothies, of course. Just to eat as they are. Put them in a bowl with a little sugar on, maybe. Any number of things. I put them over ice cream. They're an excellent source of vitamins, and I think antioxidants, they say too. They're very good for your health and fighting diseases. So, and they're easy to grow. I mean, they're easy to pick. As a kid, I remember going with family to places that had blueberry bushes. Pick your own, and you took a little bucket, hanging it on your belt, and you just picked and put it in the bucket, and then everybody brought them home. I live in a place where they also have wild huckleberries. That's a cousin to the blueberry. That's in the usually in the mountains. People would go on these huckleberry picking adventures in the mountains. My wife used to live in a place where she had some wild huckleberries on her land. We used to pick some of those. They were very sweet. They made great pies. I tried to transplant a few of the plants here, and they just didn't make it. It was just, I guess, too different soil or whatever. But they were much smaller than this, and they're not as prolific, of course, because they're not, bred to be as, they're naturally occurring. They're not domestically bred to be more heavy producers or larger fruit. So you just don't get that with the wild ones. But they do have good flavor. So if that's something you're into, you can think about that too. As an activity if you have wild huckleberries where you live. But so I just wanted to show you what I've done with the blueberries. I'll have quite a bit to harvest here yet for probably the next couple weeks, and I don't know how much we put away last year. It was several gallons. It was the first year in a few years that we didn't actually have to buy commercially grown ones. Some of the grocery stores around our area and other fundraisers and things will sell blueberries in the summer. And we've done that in the past, get 20 pounds, 40 pounds, what have you. But this is a whole lot better because these are ours, I haven't worried too much about fertilizing because I figure there's plenty of nutrients in the soil here. And with the wood shavings, they're getting some of that. The only thing that I do try to do is if it starts to get really dry, is I'll try to water a bit. I know the roots are fairly deep by now, but I just don't want the plants to dry out too much. But because our harvest is early this year, before we would have any kind of really dry weather in the summer, probably it'll all be done. So again, it's not a whole lot of work to do once you're set up. Once you have your setup to protect them from the critters, and once you have your pruning done in the wintertime, it's just wait till they get ripe and go to town picking. They are a bit frost resistant in the spring with the blossoms, much more so than other fruit trees. So even if you have a colder spring, Maine is famous for blueberries. So you can imagine that if they can grow blueberries in Maine, they have to be somewhat frost resistant, if you know what I mean. Excuse me. So put a few of these in your yard. Make a nice row perhaps. The kids can enjoy picking them with you. You can enjoy picking them with you. Bring family over to pick with you, and you get this wonderful fruit, and it's very inexpensive to have. So the initial investment is just the plants and the equipment, or the structures around it, and then after that you're pretty much good to go. All right, thank you for watching. I appreciate how much you're supporting our channel. Please like and subscribe. Spread the word to other people that we're here, what we're trying to do to show people how they can live out in the country on a shoestring. Again, thank you very much for watching.